When Suzuki introduced its brand new Baleno to the world at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 2015, we were there and we came away rather impressed by it. But what really piqued our interest was this new 1-litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine called the Booster Jet, which was available in the European car. And of course, when the Baleno was launched in India, we just got the regular 1.2 petrol and 1.3 diesel engines. And while they are great, we petrol heads were longing for that fancy turbo petrol engine. Now, however, in 2017, the Booster Jet engine is finally in India, and just to make matters a little bit more interesting, Maruti has launched the Baleno in an exclusive sporty trim for this engine called the Baleno RS. And because it's a sporty trim, they brought us all the way here to the Budh International Circuit to give it a proper shakedown. But first, a quick sum up of what's new on the Baleno RS's exterior. At first glance, it might not seem a lot, but look a little closer and you'll find a number of new details. At the front, there are black accents in the headlamps, a new grille mesh finished in gunmetal grey, and a new bumper with a neat lip peeking out from the bottom. That lip continues around the sides in the form of these skirts, and over at the back there's an all-new bumper that's perhaps the most aggressive visual element on this car, with its dark grey rear valance. What's a bit disappointing is the alloy wheels. They may be painted black, but they're still the same 16-inch design as the standard cars. A sportier set would have really done wonders. So, now that you know how to spot a Baleno RS out on the street, time to hit the track and see what this new Booster Jet engine is all about. Right, now the first thing you notice about this new Baleno's 1-litre Booster Jet engine is what I'm noticing right now as soon as I exit the pit lane is that it's not as frantically peppy off the line as even the 1.2-litre petrol. That bottom end is just not there. It doesn't jump off the line. There's a bit of a cushion, a bit of a delay before the power comes in, and that's okay. It just takes a little bit getting used to. If you're used to the 1.2, this is really quite different setting off the line. The next thing I notice, of course, is that the steering does feel a lot better. Now, I will admit this is a brand new car, so maybe there's a little bit of tightness as opposed to our test Balenos that have had a few thousand kilometers put on them. But it's still not perfect, it's still far from the best steering you'll find out there, but it does at least feel a bit heavier and a bit more weighted, which is really quite a welcome change because that was really one of the Baleno's biggest failings in the past. It felt just a little too loose and disconnected from the road. This does feel a lot better, and that's a good thing indeed, especially here on the Budh International Circuit. While on the subject of corners and handling, it would have been really great if Maruti somehow managed to put seats with better lateral support in the Baleno RS. Sure, these are comfortable, but when you're flinging it around corners, it would have been nice to be held in place a bit better. As with all turbocharged engines, there is a bit of a delay before the power comes on in earnest, and in this 1-litre Booster Jet, that point is around 2000 RPM. That's when the real thrust begins, and it goes on all the way till 6000 RPM, which is the red line, at which point the limiter kicks in. It's not as strong at the top end, obviously, but it will rev there. It's not a free revving engine either, but it will rev all the way there nonetheless. It is all about the mid-range, this car. Once you get it past 2000 and into the meat of the power band, you really want to stick it there. The Budh right now, for me, is a series of 3rd and 4th gear corners, and it's only on the straight that you ever get into 5th, and you rarely have to go down to 2nd in this car. So while it's got a good mid-range and it's really quite entertaining, that's helped a lot by the lightweight of this car. You can't say it's an outright entertaining engine, you know. It doesn't rev very quickly. Even the build-up of speed is quite gradual. It's consistent, but it's not thrilling, you know. The power is enough, it's not excessive. As we open it up here once again on the back straight, you'll see that yes, it's there. It even makes a pretty decent noise. The 3-cylinder thrum actually sounds quite good when it wakes up. But thrilling, I'm not so sure. While it feels pretty quick on its own, we couldn't help but feel it could have been faster still. And it turns out there's actually a good reason for that. The booster jet motor has been detuned for India. Now it's a shame that Maruti couldn't offer this engine in its full European spec, which I believe has about 111 horsepower and 170 Newton meters of torque. Here it only develops 102 horsepower and 150 Newton meters. And the reason for that is because they've designed it to work with the worst possible fuel our country has to offer. Maruti is a brand that sells all over the country, even in places where you don't get even 91 octane petrol. So in order to make sure it works even in those conditions, it's been detuned just a little bit, and that's a shame. It's not just the engine though. Maruti has fiddled with the Baleno chassis and suspension too for this RS variant. Now similarly with the suspension, it has been beefed up, but that's not because this is an RS model. It's actually been beefed up because the whole car has been beefed up for better crash regulations. It's about 60 kilograms heavier than before, and that's why to compensate they've had to stiffen up the suspension quite a bit. The engine itself and its ancillaries, including the turbocharger, is only really a few kilograms heavier than the 1.2 litre petrol. It's just all the extra stiffening that's caused the dramatic weight gain. Maruti has also added rear disc brakes to this Baleno RS, and while it did feel a bit stronger, you'll have to wait for our full road test to see just how much. An area where there have been no changes is the interior, where things are exactly the same as in the top-spec Baleno Alpha. Now the slightly disappointing thing about the interior of the Baleno RS is that it's really no different from the standard car. Well, that's no bad thing, honestly. It's a good interior. It's got a leather-wrapped steering wheel and a 7-inch Smart Play screen right front and center on the dashboard. But we wish Maruti would have done a little bit extra to spruce up this car, to make you feel a little bit more special about having bought an RS. There are RS badged floor mats, but really, that really doesn't do much at all, does it? So the Baleno RS is every bit a Maruti. At 8.69 lakh rupees ex-showroom Delhi, it is well priced compared to similarly positioned hatchbacks like the VW Polo GT and the Fiat Abarth Punto. It's practical, it can run on poor quality petrol, and with a 21.4 kpl ARAI rating, it even gets pretty decent fuel economy. So it's a great family hatchback that's a little bit nicer to drive. But is it an out-and-out performance car? Not quite. Perhaps the RS badge is a little misleading. It raises your expectations higher than what the car can deliver, and at a premium of 1.4 lakh rupees over the top spec 1.2 petrol, there isn't enough inside or out to set it apart. Still, thanks to the new booster jet engine, it is a bit more entertaining than the standard car, and it makes for a great range topper to the Baleno lineup. Just don't go expecting white knuckle hot hatchback thrills.